I just want to pause to acknowledge the traditional owners before we start, Eagleby people, elders in the past, those emerging, those that will carry us forward into the future. We have 115 Indigenous students at Eagleby South in our school of about 500. We speak Eagleby as our lote, and we might greet each other in the morning by saying Jingari, Buku Bajura, and Jingari a lot. You hear that word around our place a lot. It's a beautiful language. And I was particularly interested in what Auntie Faith was saying this morning about the implications of mess for Indigenous people. There are some similar but very different implications for education, and that's partly why I chose this little word. I'd just ask a favour of you, and that is that take that little word mess, that little 4-letter word, and write it down on an imaginary piece of paper and put it in your imaginary pocket and carry it with you through this presentation, because it's got some amazing implications that we can explore, or perhaps you can explore as we work our way through this. What I'm not going to do today is tell you what we're doing at our school, because it doesn't feel like we've done anything. It feels like something has happened to us and for us, and we've had a lot of help with that. And it feels like the best thing we can do is witness it, is look at it and listen to it and watch it carefully and attend to it. And that's what I'd like to try to generate this morning. So what I'm going to do is simply share some individual stories about kids in the play space, groups, things that happen, and just leave you to do the work of determining their significance. And I think that might be a bit of fun. It certainly has had a big impact on us. It's changed us. Sometimes it's just enthralling. Sometimes it's reprimanding, and it stops you in your tracks and realise we need to value this more. We've been stuffing this up in the past. So at our school, it's interesting, we've got a great big flash new building, shiny big playground, cost heaps, won't tell you how much. A few little climbers on it in the break times, they climb for a while. And then over here, just around the corner, it's this mayhem of pallets and mayhem of pallets and gardens and old truck wheel arches and all sorts of things. And this is what happens when we open the breach in the pallet wall a few times a day. Got some sound there? He pushed in. She doesn't look happy. And we didn't. This just happens a few times a day. I love that. So it's absolutely a hit, and you have to see it actually working to understand the value of it, but I think you'll get a glimpse in a few of these pictures. I think when I started this presentation, I put in a few pretty pictures at the beginning to sort of soothe you a bit, because some of it looks a bit scary. This is a young gardener called Siraj. He's epic. He's perhaps a little prematurely harvested carrots. I had one of them. It was gritty but good. And there's some boys working on something which I'll show you in a minute. I promise you this is the only data that I'm going to put up on the screen, and it's a comparison of semester 1 in 2019 before COVID, messed up things a bit, and the 2001 behaviour data from this year. You can see the difference. It's absolutely staggering, the difference that's made. And I just want to come back to that little word mess again. This has occurred not by order or control. This has occurred by mess and play. They're the only things that we'd changed. And that's something just to think about. We could talk all day about that. So what I'd like to do is a bit of a ground-up view so this is a view from sitting on a milk crate, right? What's happening at Eagleby South? And I sit on the milk crate twice a day in there. In that particular picture, you can see two people looking up at the drone. One is Banjo, our school dog, top of the screen. and another little fella down the bottom who's rolling around inside half of a starboard marker beacon from the Richmond River in New South Wales that I scavenged. And he's rolling around in the dust in that. And this is during COVID, right? So this is a group of kids that tended to be kids at risk or vulnerable, kids that we were allowing to come to school. And on this particular day, this particular little guy had a really rough few weeks, a few months to be honest, more than I can describe for you this morning. And he'd fallen out with his friends, he's dysregulated and he couldn't manage his emotions, and he'd lost his friendships had all gone pear-shaped. And this particular day, healing actually occurred in that space. This is him in there with his estranged friend who are now tumbling around together. Their little vestibular systems and brains and hearts and senses of humour are rolling around on the ground together. And it was absolutely beautiful. I need to tell you, it's a family show, he had discovered also, though, that the acoustic properties of that thing meant that a particularly well-delivered fart was extremely effective. And he seems to be quite gifted in that area. I'm not going to talk about safety much, except to say that no one's been killed. And what this kid pranked me. He nailed a glove to the thing and put his hand in it and said, "Mr. Barnes." Anyway, so they even have sword fights, and there's no, they're miming fights. They're not hurting each other, and we don't let kids do that sort of stuff, but it can happen. And these are, I'll be frank with you, ours is not a leafy green school where everything's all lovely. These are kids that have sometimes never had the freedom to do this sort of thing before, and yet we haven't had any injuries. We've had choking on popcorn or broken arms outside, but nothing in the space, except the wonderful thing where a kid comes and says, "I've smashed my finger with a hammer." And I go, "Yeah, do you want to go and get the placebo ice?" "Oh, no, I'll keep going." And that's what we used to not even need to call resilience, that right there. Yeah, we buy all these programs to get kids, social skills. Schools are so bound up with things that are learned and measuring those things that are learned that we've lost the plot. I'm a heretic, I know, but we've completely lost the plot. And so if a child's suffering, do we go and get an app that teaches them to know that they're actually breathing? Don't get me started. So the first, I'm going to play another little bit of a video before I get on a rant. Here we go. There was I'll go to that one. This is cool. This is really cool. The next voices you'll hear are a chorus of absolute ecstatic play. One weekend we installed an old cast iron water pump, hooked it up to a food grade IBC, filled it full of tap water, and it somehow worked. And we came to school that next day and sort of just deployed it. Some of the kids helped to hook it up. And this is what happens now that we've added water. No shoes.
Keep it coming!
And that sound is, that look is a look of abject dismay that the bell's gone, they've got to go back to class. I think everyone in the room remembers that sinking feeling. The water has been wonderful. I personally believe water is almost sort of sacramental. I think water creates its own sparkling form of jubilation, and it's showing kids and water work wonderfully well together. You might also notice a sense of urgency there. We've got to do this quick because water is not an endless thing, and it will run out. And the play has to be done before the water's turned off. Mr. Barnes turns it off because it'll run out. And there's a sense of urgency and almost, I suppose, a sense of stewardship of the water. You know, we've got to look after our water. It's an environmental resource. We could talk all day about that. But there it is. I want to just press on with these stories because I love them so much. This one is Joe's swing. One afternoon, Joe came to school. He's in such a bad mood. He's just swearing and kicking walls, swearing at any teacher who was silly enough to go near him. He came in to the play space to help me with another group that was there. Another little guy who's, he just wears binoculars and looks at birds and stuff in the afternoons, doesn't want to do any schoolwork. He came in too, and they helped me with the group. And I'll show you. Okay, so he spent ages. He made one rope swing, didn't work, just banged against a tree. Tied a rope to a rock, threw it over the branch. I herded the kids away so that no one was killed on re-entry. And he made this rope swing and he hooked up this pallet and he got on it, then it spun and it was terrifying. So he's put these safety barriers around it. So the ropes that you can see around the edges, they're designed to be a safety feature to stop the occupant from falling off. And then he gave the other little mate a go on it and he was terrified. And he was just screeching with joy, fear. And that screeching advertised the thing to the whole group. So this girl wanted to go. And then in about 10 minutes, Joe had a queue of 6 to 8, well, more than that, people who had to have a go. And this is a kid who was isolated. It's a kid who struggles for very, very good reason. And when it had all finished and they all went, he just stayed with me and he was kicking the dirt around. And I heard him mutter really into the ground, "I love this place." And I didn't quite hear, and I said, "Mate, what did you say?" And he said, "I love this place." Now, I've never seen that boy smile. That's serious. I've never seen him smile. He didn't smile, but there was a flicker in his eye, and I knew how important that space was for him. Amazing. Another quick story, and I call it the effing heavy tyre. And it was a little boy, again, struggled with self-regulation a little bit, and there was a big tyre. I think I can show you the tyre. That's it. Okay. And he couldn't move it. He was kicking it and swearing at it, and that wasn't working for him. It just stayed where it was. And then he sort of meekly turned around and he said, "Can anyone help me?" And this group of girls, does it go back? No, it doesn't go back. Little red one? Yeah, that group of girls, engineers, just gathered around the tyre. There was sort of this hallowed silence, and they all just came, picked it up, put it exactly where he wanted it, and he's just shaking his head. And again, we can buy social skills programs, but what did he just learn? He learned something about how you work with other people and talk to them and make things happen together. And that's the sort of thing that just happens continually in this kind of space. And I feel like that sort of village environment, multi-age, lots of kids around, lots of freedom, is the natural home for learning, working with people. It's probably evolutionary. It's in our history. That's the sort of place we're supposed to do that stuff. And we've denied kids of those spaces and tried to patch it up with commercially bought stuff. And it's not working. That's him sailing away on top of that terrestrial canoe that goes into space. I had to include, this happened only a couple of days ago, and excuse the dirt. They then tipped it upside down and emptied all the mud out of it. Just wanted to show you what kids get up to when you leave them with some stuff that they can, and it's hard work. I couldn't move that boat full of dirt on my own. Beautiful stuff. I just want to have one last story, then I'll be gone. Nevaeh's kitchen. Nevaeh, I'll strip this back to its bare bones. She worked for days making that kitchen, and I'll play the track because it's silent. You'll see how she's working diligently. She's got a whole process going. That's some cupcakes with tomatoes that are grown from the garden next door. She had, by the end of this little video, there's about 4 or 5 different dishes that she's got going. And you can't hear because there's no audio. Some other kids are saying, "Wow, Nevaeh, look at that, wow, wow." And I just love that. A bit of a loner. That's a cake she's pouring. You can see there's starting to be a bit of interest in this. And then by the end of the day, she had a staff of 7. I had to give some counselling to a girl who got fired. But she got a job back. There's a process. But for me, and I can't fully disclose why that's such an amazing achievement for that little person. And I think that's the value of sitting on the milk crate and seeing what's going on in that kind of play, because it may well be the only way we sell it to people who walk past. This loose part space is loud and proud in the middle of our school. I wouldn't have been game to do it if it wasn't for Steve, the next speaker, who infected me with the idea. He didn't even know that. But I'm so thankful for that and for all the help we've had with it. I was just thinking, you can see, she's ordering people around, but a little stamp of the foot sometimes. Initially, Nevaeh didn't want me to let anyone touch anything she'd built or move anything. And I said, "I'm sorry, I can't promise you that, Nevaeh. It's just the way it is." And a little stamp of the foot and a grunt, which is wonderful because it's appropriate. It's an appropriate expression of a bit of emotion. And I feel, as I sit on my milk crate, they're looking at the way she now engages with these other kids. My imagination is sparked, and I can see her running a very successful, very big something someday. And it just sort of gives you a little shiver to see that happening. I don't have any more stories. I think that's enough. I am so thankful for the help we've had in getting this going, and I think it's got great potential for the future. I loved yesterday that Hayano mentioned the need to see things just in terms of a good childhood. Yeah, we don't need data. I mean, it's great, the data will come. The data will come, and it's important to acknowledge that. But a good childhood, let us just reflect on what that might be, use our own memories, use our observations, and do our best to provide a good childhood for all. Thanks, everyone.